Hello everyone, welcome to our presentation. We are from Small Group Discussion B7 would like to present you a student project titled Advantage and Disadvantage of Student-Centered Learning During Pandemic Era. Next. This is our members. This table of contents, this is consisted of Chapter 1, Introduction, Chapter 2, Literature Review, and Chapter 3, Conclusion.
Okay, firstly, let me introduce myself. My name is Dantia Widarta, with my last 3-digit number being 147. Background information. Learning can be described as a way of interaction between a learner and the educator. This learning system is the foundation to the educational system all around the world. Up until now, there are two educational approaches that we mainly use to this day, which is teacher-centered learning and student-centered learning. In this modern era, especially in this pandemic era, a learner needs to deepen their studies, which a student-centered learning system should be more relevant. During this pandemic, schools are also establishing online classes and also adapting student-centered learning, which shows some positive feedbacks, like in some cases in China and also in the United States of America. Even though the student-centered learning displays some advantages, this doesn't mean it doesn't have any disadvantages. Thus, we are going to discuss the student-centered learning and how does it perform in this pandemic era. We hope that we could clarify the effectiveness of student-centered learning in this pandemic era. Okay, next.
Okay, for the next part, me, Bryan Tjandra, with student number 152, will explain our problem formulation. There are 4 problem formulation. The first one, what is the differences between student-centered learning and teacher-centered learning? The second one, what are the differences between student-centered learning during the pandemic and before the pandemic? The third one, what are the advantages of student-centered learning during the pandemic? And the fourth one is, what are the disadvantages of student-centered learning during pandemic? Next.
Before I list the objectives, let me introduce myself. My name is Anastasia Andrea Tamberius, and my last 3 digits are 154. The first objective is to describe and explain the difference between student-centered learning and teacher-centered learning. The second objective is to describe and explain the difference between student-centered learning during pandemic and before pandemic. And the third is to list and elaborate the advantages of student-centered learning during pandemic. And the last one is to list and elaborate the disadvantages of student-centered learning during the pandemic.
Next, my name is Leonyta Augustyne with the last 3 digits ID number 150. Now I will describe the benefits, what benefits this project can provide. Student projects of student-centered learning can be used to clarify the real concepts and explain the definition of student-centered learning to equalize perception. The contents also can be a reference to differentiate student and teacher-centered learning style by analyzing each pros and cons. Next, the result can be a guideline to describe the situation of student-centered learning before and during pandemic. Last, the project can be used to analyze the disadvantages of student-centered learning and mention related solutions or advice.
Okay, my name is Anjani Sudewa with last 3 digits 148. The difference between student-centered learning and teacher-centered learning. The first is teacher-centered learning. Teacher-centered learning is a learning method that makes teacher as the dominant source of knowledge. In this learning method, teacher as the active participant and students as the passive participants. And then because the information received is equal, most students are being competitive, individualistic, and lack of opportunity to think out loud and interact with other students. However, this learning method has an advantage of being applied in teaching a large class because everything is well prepared. And next is student-centered learning. Student-centered learning is a learning method that the process is centered on students to improve and develop critical thinking skills. In the implementation of student-centered learning, the learning environment is designed that the students could play an active role in analyzing problems and developing solutions through communication and collaboration in between each student. And then in this learning method, student as active participants and the teacher as facilitator. In student learning, students have a freedom to direct their learning style and what subject they will learn. And then some educators also notice that students become more successful through student-centered environment because they know what they were learning and they were able to apply it into various benefits. And also, student-centered learning has a lot of positive positive impact, such as improving academic achievement, communication skill, relationship with peers, and various abilities for their careers. Thank you.
My name is Febriano de Prawira with the last 3 digits of 156, and now I'm going to explain the differences between student-centered learning before the pandemic and after the pandemic. There are 3 main differences. The first one is the place. Before the pandemic, student-centered learning will always be conducted on school grounds. But after the pandemic, student-centered learning will be often conducted in online meeting platforms such as Zoom, WebEx, etc. Second one is the role of the teacher. Before the pandemic, teacher will act as a facilitator for the students. Teachers will guide them when they got off track. But after the pandemic, teachers will be a facilitator and a motivator as well. Then the last one is on the implementation of student-centered learning. Before the pandemic, student-centered learning will be more controlled and conducive. But after pandemic, student-centered learning is not as conducive. These can be caused by bad internet connection, incompatible device, and many more.
Okay, let me introduce myself. I am Grace Valerie with the last 3 digits 143. Now I'm going to present about the advantage of student-centered learning during the pandemic. The first advantage is students could practice critical thinking and build curiosity. Students are pushed to research, find, and understand the course materials on their own because they are expected to achieve the learning objectives set by the institution. This will increase students' curiosity about the topic. When they become curious, students tend to find the answers to their questions. Additionally, students must see from many different points of view of different people on a single topic, resulting in students having critical thinking skills to examine which perspective could be accepted and not. The second advantage is students are able to focus on independent learning. Student-centered learning mainly focuses on students. Teachers are there only to provide the base material, facilitate, and guide them when they went out of track. This will force students to study independently by searching for reference they need. Furthermore, this method benefits students because they could work in their own pace. This will help students to process the information better. The third advantage is SEL is a win-win solution for both lecturers and students. During the pandemic, teaching and learning activities mostly switched to online learning that uses various learning platforms. While teachers may have harder times adjusting to the new features of technology, students, on the other hand, were more swift on using technology. With student-centered learning, teachers can just assess how much students could understand a certain topic and give corrections on the wrong understanding. And this will eventually ease teachers' burden.
Let me introduce myself. My name is Happy Kusumamulya and my last 3 digits number is 151. For the next point, we will talk about students perform more active. Student-centered learning is designed to help students participate actively in class. The whole learning and teaching process revolves around students rather than the teacher. This helps students to be active in the long run. They would need to study and find information by themselves, because students have to keep studying for the rest of their lives. Next slide, please. For the next point is improve students' literacy skills. Student-centered learning pushes students to search and find the most of information, materials, or journals independently. This makes the students have to practice their literacy skills. Literacy skills are needed for the medical students to be able to understand all the materials they have read and to study effectively. Also finding materials and information from reliable and quality sources. Literacy skills are going to help medical students to write qualified medical journals that comply with the rules and without plagiarism.
Let me introduce myself. My name is Marina Nugrahani Agyaputri with the last 3 digit numbers are 140. So next one, students are able to collaborate with friends and create companionship. In medical schools, students need to practice how to collaborate so that they can become familiar with how healthcare teams work. In this pandemic, almost every day, students will discuss and work on assignments together in student group discussions and student projects. So students are introduced to collaborative learning indirectly. Collaborative learning also has other benefits to support students in the middle of this pandemic, such as reducing anxiety, increasing self-esteem, expanding relation, increasing productivity, etc. Moreover, students will interact with their friends every day, and it allows students to build a close relationship and create companionship that can support students to get through the pandemic. The last one, flexibility and time efficiency. Student-centered learning has shorter lecture duration than the teacher-centered learning had. This benefits students because they can have more time to study and deepen the material with their own pace and study style. And since most of the time in this pandemic is spent at home, it adds to the flexibility of student-centered learning. The students are also able to manage their own time to study outside the given class schedule and are able to improve their skills by joining campus extracurricular or other activities outside of their academic responsibilities. Next.
Allow me to introduce myself first. Hello, my name is Carla of the Manullang, with my last 3 digits are 146. Now I'm going to present the disadvantages of student-centered learning during pandemic. The first one is spend more time on social media. More recently, social media use has skyrocketed, especially among college students, to access a variety of information. When they access information that must be done digitally, their attention tends to be distracted, so they access social media to relieve their boredom of either search or study. As a result, students' abilities in research or learning skills have declined because they are too involved with the sites. Students become less focused, so their ability to study diminished and affected their academic performance. When students spend more time on social media than they do on live social networks, it will affect their communication skills. The second one is different conditions required in teachers' teaching method. Teachers think that the challenges associated with a teacher approach will arise if teachers cannot perform their role in the learning process that consists of student planning and guidance. If teachers cannot apply the student-centered learning in an integrity, it will cause errors. The teacher said that the student-centered learning indicates a high level in the case of cognitive abilities. However, student-centered learning is restricted when students do not show the cognitive abilities. Teachers say that this approach takes considerable time because of such factors as too many students, student readiness levels, and teacher skills. The third one is unlimited, unfiltered, and irresponsible information sources. In choosing reliable and valid information, the focus is on the need for the truth, not vindication. It is not uncommon for students to find out which information is reliable and unreliable. This is because students who lack the correct genealogical criteria, examples of failure to understand this genealogical criteria, such as information is presented without full references or documentation, consultational institutions of unrecognizable credibility, and genealogical criteria that appear to contradict to the content criteria. It is important to remember that a particular topic can show relevance rather than reliability. Efforts we can make to ascertain the reliability of information, such as through resources, content provider contact addresses, etc. The fourth one is dishonesty and plagiarism. Plagiarism is the act of copying the work of others that is then made personal without writing or mentioning the original creator or writer. The student described himself as someone who upholds honesty and truth. In fact, that idealism simply vanishes when they confronted with reality, which is an academic obligation. The students turn their assignments and good grades into an excuse for plagiarism. This is because the Indonesian educational system focuses on excellence over character. The factors contributing to the growth of plagiarism were very little instruction of curriculum on the dangers of plagiarism. Next.
Okay, before the next part, let me introduce myself first. My name is Gusti Rahadi Aryawangsa. My last 3-digit number is 134. So the next point is difficulty in practicing clinical skills. Clinical skills are a must, especially in medical education. With limited physical interaction, students will be difficult to practice their clinical skills because of online learning. Practicing clinical skills can be overcome by watching interactive videos on the internet. However, it is still not enough because students need real training by doing it directly. The next point is difficulty accessing internet and devices. Online learning is highly dependent on the availability of information and communication technology. For sources of reading and writing in this pandemic era cannot be separated from the internet network to smartphones, laptops, and computers. Online learning also requires students to look for books, journals, videos, and other learning references. Of course, all of that requires good internet access. In this pandemic era, many parents also cannot afford digital devices to support their children in carrying out online learning. Limited internet access and inability to have communication devices will hinder online learning. The next point is independent learning in discipline. Self-discipline trains students to be careful about making mistakes, increases motivation, self-control, commitment, and also improves academic achievement. By seeing the benefits of disciplinary behavior, undisciplined behavior must be eliminated. Sometimes, online content is all theoretical and doesn't allow students to practice and learn effectively. Even though time and location flexibility is the strength of online learning, these aspects are fragile and create problems. The last point is lack of feedbacks while independent learning. Feedbacks plays an important role in learning. Many students find it difficult to communicate their complex ideas in online learning. Their ability to express their question clearly and understand explanations is limited by the lack of face-to-face interaction. With online learning, students will also feel less follow-ups for correcting errors they make while studying. Other than that, students will also feel less interested in seeing their teacher for feedback on how to improve their learning due to lack of face-to-face interaction. Next.
Okay, my name is Stella Angeline Isbianto, and my last three digits are 142. And now I'm going to draw conclusions of this student project. First, in student-centered learning, the teacher functions as a facilitator, and the students will embrace a more active and collaborative role. But in teacher-centered learning, teacher becomes a dominant source of knowledge, and students will passively receive the knowledge from the teacher. Second, before the pandemic, student-centered learning is conducted face-to-face in school. But during this pandemic, student-centered learning is conducted on a virtual meeting platform where there are more challenges, such as poor internet connection, incompatible devices, and teachers need to come up with more creative and innovative strategies to keep the students engaged. Next. There are advantages and disadvantages of student-centered learning. The advantages are to develop our critical thinking and curiosities. Also, students can learn independently and actively participate in class, improving students' literacy skills and collaborative skills. And also, student-centered learning is more flexible and time efficient. And there are also disadvantages, such as students will spend more time on social media. There are different conditions required in student-centered learning, so the teacher and the students need to adapt. We can find more dishonesty, plagiarism, and unfiltered information sources. Also, lack of discipline, lack of feedback, difficulty in practicing clinical skills, poor internet connection, and also lack of devices which can halt the student-centered learning process.
My name is Nilaputa Mahaputri Kaika with the last three digits 155. And I'm going to present the suggestion part of our project. So based on what we have already discussed, every learning method has its pros and cons. Student-centered learning gets students more active, but that doesn't mean teacher-centered learning is the wrong method. Both approaches have their advantage and disadvantage. Remember that each learning process still involves us as the students, so adaptation to both systems is needed. We suggest preparing and strengthening self-motivation in adapting to student-centered learning and teacher-centered learning because it all depends on us as the learner. And that brings us to the end. I would like to apologize if there is any mistake. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you.